All right, picture this. The year is 1983. You are standing right at the edge of the Arabian Sea near the coast of Gujarat, and the waves are just crashing against the shore with this strange, almost restless energy. Imagine yourself as an investigative marine archaeologist. You're strapped into your scuba gear, staring out into the blue abyss, and you are about to take a plunge that will completely rewrite history. For centuries, the magnificent city of Dwarka was considered nothing more than a beautiful myth, just this ancient fable of a golden utopia. But what if it wasn't? What if the physical remains of that legendary world were literally resting just beneath the surface, waiting to be found? Well, welcome to this explainer, where we are going to unravel one of the absolute greatest archaeological mysteries of our time.
Okay, let's dive into this. Literally. As an archaeologist staring down into that dark water, you really have to ask yourself, could an entire mythological city truly be buried beneath the waves? For generations, the epic tales of the Mahabharata were seen merely as spiritual lore. But as we started looking at unusual rock formations and the unnatural geometry hidden down there beneath the sand, a pretty radical thought emerged. What if these ancient epics weren't just stories? What if they were actual, tangible, historical blueprints?
So, let's get into Section 1, diving into the myth and where the search actually begins.
Now, the transition from seeing Dwarka as a purely religious myth to a legitimate historical site, it definitely didn't happen overnight. Let's trace the first breadcrumbs here. Way back in the 1930s, local fishermen and pilots flying over the Arabian Sea started reporting some really strange things. They were seeing long, straight lines and structural shapes visible under the clear waters that just looked far too organized to be natural reefs. This actually prompted the Archaeological Survey of India to conduct their initial excavations around Bedwarka in 1963, where they uncovered ancient pottery and solid structural foundations. But the real smoking gun, that came in the 1970s. A 6th century copper plate belonging to a king named Simhad was discovered in official government records. And this wasn't just any artifact. The plate explicitly mentioned Krishna's abode in this exact geographical region. Suddenly, the myth had an actual address, and pioneers of marine archaeology were basically compelled to look close.
Moving on to Section 2, Blueprints of a Golden City, the Ancient Texts.
So, before we could search the ocean floor, we obviously had to do our homework on land. And this brilliantly illustrates the duality of our sources. On one hand, we have the spiritual lore. These are texts detailing how Lord Krishna prayed to the sea god Varuna, who granted him 12 yojanas, which, by the way, is equivalent to a massive 153.6-kilometer landmass. It says the city was built by the celestial architect Vishwakarma. But look at the urban engineering described in those exact same texts. They talk about over 900 grand palaces. They mention incredibly advanced irrigation systems providing fresh water, and a highly organized grid where these wide city roads led directly to specialized shipping harbors. I mean, these aren't just fantasy elements. They're literally describing a highly advanced, self-sufficient, masterfully engineered maritime port.
Which brings us to Part 3, Curses and the Great Flood, the Fall of the Adavas.
Now, as archaeologists, we actually treat these mythological curses as culturally recorded history of a cascading societal disaster. The texts record a fascinating chronological timeline of doom. It all starts following the devastating Mahabharata war, when a grieving Gandhari curses Krishna, prophesying that his lineage, the Yadavas, will face utter destruction. Years later, arrogant youths mock great sages, prompting a second curse that Krishna's son Samba will birth an iron mace that will destroy their entire clan. Ultimately, the society collapses into infighting and chaos at Prabhas, fueled by arrogance and intoxication. They literally destroy themselves with weapons forged from that very iron mace. And finally, Krishna is fatally struck by a hunter's arrow, and upon his passing, the ocean rises up and violently reclaims the Golden City. So, mythologically, it's a tale of divine retribution. But historically, it points directly to a society weakened by internal collapse, followed immediately by a catastrophic natural flood.
All right, Section 4. Uncovering the Submerged Truth, the Expeditions of Dr. S.R. Rao.
So the big question, how do you prove a flood swallowed a golden city? Well, enter Dr. S.R. Rao. Between 1983 and 1992, running on an absolute shoestring budget, I'm talking sometimes using his own salary to feed his team, he pulled incredible, hard evidence from 30 meters beneath the waves. Just think about the sheer scale of the discoveries here. They found a massive 560-meter-long stone wall, perfectly matching the epic text's description of Dwarka's fortifications. They discovered over 30 stone pillars, which are the clear foundations of massive palace structures. They found these really unique three-holed anchors, proving this was a bustling port with highly advanced navigation for its time. and they brought up terracotta seals and artifacts that dating laboratories initially placed anywhere between 1500 and 3000 BCE. This was no longer just a myth, guys. It was a bustling, organized port city.
But then, carbon dating and thermoluminescence testing on some of these artifacts revealed a number that absolutely shocked the global scientific community. 9,000. Yeah, one specific wooden artifact and a piece of pottery were dated back 9,000 years. To put that into perspective, that predates the Harappan civilization. It completely shatters the established timelines of human urban development in the entire region. Just mind-blowing.
Okay, part 5, the science of sinking, the geological evidence. So the crucial point is, if an organized city of this magnitude existed thousands of years ago, how on earth did it end up at the bottom of the ocean? Well, between 2001 and 2007, high-tech expeditions sought to answer exactly that. It all comes down to the sea level rise theory. Professor Rance, analyzing 20,000 years of data, discovered something truly remarkable. Around 5000 BCE, there was a sudden, massive 25-meter rise in global sea levels, and this correlated with massive seismic and tsunami events. Similar massive marine shifts were actually recorded globally around the exact same time, from the Caribbean all the way to Indonesia. Suddenly, the mythical flood that swallowed Dwarka wasn't just a story anymore, it was a verified global geological event.
And when modern scientists mapped over 4,000 square meters of the ocean floor using advanced sonar, they saw the aftermath firsthand. The mapping revealed a gradual sinking process. It showed how these massive limestone blocks, temples, and homes were slowly pushed and shifted beneath the relentlessly rising tides. The geological timeline of the ocean's rise perfectly matched the archaeological ruins. It's like a giant puzzle coming together. The Earth's history and the ancient texts were telling the exact same story.
Finally, Section 6, a legend brought to light. The modern legacy.
Decades of sheer persistence, from local fishermen's tales to high-tech sonar mapping, have finally paid off. In February 2024, a major government-backed scuba diving expedition actually took place off Panchakui Beach. This was an incredibly high-profile validation of the site, featuring divers exploring those exact same submerged pillars, anchors, and ancient walls. It was a monumental moment that brilliantly bridges the gap between faith and historical science. It proved that deep-rooted cultural beliefs and rigorous scientific inquiry don't have to be enemies at all. They can actually be two completely different paths leading us to the exact same truth. Dwarka is real.
Which leaves us with this final, massive thought to take away from this explainer. Over the last 40 years, we went from assuming an entire civilization was just a fairy tale to literally mapping its harbor walls 30 meters underwater. So I have to ask you, if the lost, golden city of Dwarka is real, what other ancient legends are just waiting beneath the waves to be discovered? Keep that curiosity alive, keep looking deeper, and thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey.